You are sitting at your table right now. The aroma of toasted bread fills the air. The hiss of oil in a hot pan. The steam rising from a bowl of rice. You never think about it. You take a bite. You chew. You swallow. Your body absorbs the energy. Your brain feeds. But here is the hard truth. If you tried to eat that exact meal raw, your body would rebel. Your gut would cramp. Your intestines would spasm. Your brain would starve. Not because the food is bad, but because you are not built to eat raw food. You are built to eat cooked food. And the question that changes everything is, when did your ancient ancestors first start cooking? The answer is far stranger than you think. Let's start with the physical evidence. The kind that doesn't disappear. Fire leaves traces. Charred bones. Stone tools that have changed color from intense heat. But the food itself? The food vanishes. It decomposes. It rots away into nothing. So how does an archaeologist look at a pile of dirt that is 780,000 years old and say with absolute certainty, this is cooked fish? The answer lies in fish teeth. Yes, fish teeth. In 2022, archaeologist Irit Zohar and her team published a study that changed everything. They were excavating a site called Gesher Banat Yaakov in northern Israel. It's an ancient lake shore, and buried in the mud were over 40,000 fish remains. But here is the clever part. They didn't just look at the bones. They looked at the teeth, the enamel. They analyzed the stable isotopes and the crystal structure of the tooth enamel. And they found something extraordinary. Those teeth had been heated to temperatures that could only be achieved by cooking. Not by a campfire that accidentally burned a fish. Not by the sun. By intentional cooking. The heat was too precise. The temperature was too consistent. These fish were placed in a fire and cooked on purpose. That was 780,000 years ago. That is the oldest direct evidence of cooking in the entire history of human evolution. Let that number sink in. 780,000 years. Your ancestors were cooking fish before most of the world's species even existed in their current form. But wait, 780,000 years is a long time. But humans have been around for 300,000 years. And our ancestors, the hominins, have been around for millions. So what happened before that? How do we know when cooking actually started? This is where things get indirect. This is where you meet a man named Richard Wrangham. Wrangham is a British primatologist. And in 2009, he wrote a book called Catching Fire, How Cooking Made Us Human. His argument is simple but devastating. Look at the bodies of early humans. Look at Homo erectus. They appeared about 1.8 million years ago. And they were different. Bigger bodies. Bigger brains. But here is the twist. Smaller guts. Smaller jaws. Smaller teeth. How does that make sense? You have a bigger brain, which requires more energy. But you have a smaller gut, which means you are digesting less food. Where does the extra energy come from? Wrangham's answer: cooking. Cooking breaks down food outside the body, predigests it. It denatures proteins. It gelatinizes starches. So you don't need massive teeth to grind tough raw meat. You don't need giant intestines to ferment raw plants. You trade your gut for your brain. The expensive tissue hypothesis in action. You shrink the furnace in your belly so you can grow the computer in your skull. And that trade-off? It only works if you are cooking. So while 780,000 years is the first direct evidence, the indirect evidence, the biological evidence, pushes cooking back to at least 1.8 million years. That is the real story hiding in your anatomy. But let's jump forward slightly. Let's look at fire itself. You can't cook without fire. So when did humans learn to control fire? This is another piece of the puzzle. In 2023, a team led by archaeologist Amy Little published new findings from a site in Barnham, Suffolk, in the UK. They found something incredible, a collection of pyrite and flint tools. That is an ancient fire-starting kit. Strike them together and you get sparks. And these tools were dated to 400,000 years ago. So we know that at least 400,000 years ago, humans could make fire on demand. They weren't just stealing it from lightning strikes. They were manufacturing it. That means cooking was already a practiced skill, a technology, a tradition. They knew exactly what they were doing. Now here is the counterintuitive twist. Most of the evidence for ancient cooking is about meat and fish. Animals. Protein. That makes sense because bones survive. But what about plants? Your ancestors ate plants too. Tubers, roots, grains. But plants rot completely. They leave almost no trace. So for a long time, archaeologists thought plant cooking was very recent. But then came the 2022 discovery at the Ohalo 2 site in Israel, dated to about 23,000 years ago. They found charred plant remains that were clearly cooked. And then an even older find, the 2020 study on starch grains from 120,000-year-old stone tools. They found traces of cooked tubers. So cooking plants is much older than we thought, too. We just can't see it because the evidence turns to dust. But here is the part of the story that the archaeologists don't always tell you. The part that changes everything. Cooking didn't just change your body. It changed your society. Think about it. Fire is a gathering place. It is light in the darkness. It is warmth in the cold. And around that fire, with a shared meal, something happened. Your ancestors started talking. They started telling stories. They started sharing knowledge. The campfire became the first classroom, the first therapy session, the first family dinner. Cooking created the conditions for language, for cooperation, for empathy. You couldn't eat your food and run away. You had to stay by the fire. You had to wait. You had to share. That is when human society was born. Not in the savannah. Not in the trees. Around the fire. Now bring it back to you. You are sitting at your table. Maybe you are alone. Maybe you are with family. But your brain doesn't know the difference between a fire pit and a gas stove. When the smell of cooking food hits your nose, your ancient brain lights up. The dopamine flows. The saliva starts. Your ancestors felt the exact same thing 780,000 years ago. That smell meant survival. That smell meant safety. That smell meant community. Every meal you eat is a signal. Every time you turn on the stove, you are performing a ritual that is hundreds of thousands of years old. You are continuing a line of cooks that stretches back to the first hominin who decided to put meat in the flames instead of eating it raw. And what about the argument that cooking is bad for you? Some people say raw food is more natural, that we should eat like our ancestors. But you know better now. Your ancestors didn't eat raw food. They ate cooked food. They chose cooked food. They evolved to expect cooked food. Your body is a cooked food machine. Your gut is too small. Your teeth are too blunt. Your brain is too hungry. You couldn't survive a week on raw food. You would starve. Not because raw food is empty, but because your digestive system literally cannot extract enough calories from it. You are evolutionarily dependent on cooked food. It is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity. So when did ancient humans first start cooking food? The direct evidence says 780,000 years ago. The biological evidence says 1.8 million years ago. But the real answer is deeper than any number. Your ancestors started cooking the moment they decided that waiting was better than hunting, that sharing was better than hoarding, that sitting around a fire together was better than running through the dark alone. They started cooking the moment they decided to become human. Tonight, when you sit down to eat your dinner, look at the steam rising from your plate. Look at the color of the meat. Smell the vegetables. Feel the warmth reaching your face. You are not just eating. You are performing the oldest ritual of humanity. You are connecting to a chain of cooks that stretches back 780,000 years. You are the result of that first fish that fell into the fire. You are the child of the flame. And the strangest truth of all? Those ancient cooks would recognize you immediately. They would see you at your table and smile. Not because you have a microwave, but because you still understand. Food is better when shared, and fire is still the heart of the home. So choose wisely what you eat, but eat it cooked. Eat it with others. Eat it with gratitude, because the fire that cooked your food is the same fire that cooked your brain. And it only cares that you are here. It only cares that you showed up.